Hey everybody, this week I wanted to talk about something you might have seen on YouTube. A guy made a neon sign using a 3D printer. It's not truly neon. What is used is a LED filament, like you'd see in some of those lights. I think the Edison type lights that they've got have this looped filament in it that lights up. And by using that, you can make a what looks like from a distance a small neon sign. Now what he did was he made the letters that he used anyway were so small that the filament could tuck in, and that held it in place, and that's how he got the effect. However, depending on what you want to use for lettering, that might not work. So let's talk about other ways you can do this. So one of the first things that you can do is go and get a font that you want to use. Now that font, you want it to be a scripted font. And the reason for that is you want the letters to connect to each other. Now if you don't go with that, you're going to have to create something to connect the letters together. We can do that as well. We'll get to that in a minute. But once you've got that done, open it up in something like Adobe Illustrator, right? Type out what you want. Then save that text as a PNG. Now what that'll do is it'll save it out as a transparent background. So all you have are the words that you typed, or the word that you typed. Now you're going to go over to a website, Image2STL, and that's going to allow you to take your image that you've got, your PNG file, and convert it to an SVG. Now, if you use Adobe Illustrator, you can say, well, I can put it out as an SVG. For some reason, the rest of the process won't work with it. It doesn't like that particular SVG formatting in some way. I'm not sure why. There might be some setting that you can tweak that'll get it to work, but it's just as easy to go to this Image2STL, IMAGETOSTL.com. Grab the tool to convert PNG to SVG and upload your PNG file. Once you've got that, now again, this is free. You go over to Tinkercad, again, free. Import that SVG file. Now, once you do that, Tinkercad gives you an option to make it an outline. So here's what you do. You're going to import this twice and make sure that they're imported as two different colors so you can get a hold of them. One of them, you're going to tell it to make an outline. That's going to put the border around the word that you've made. Now, obviously, when you put it in, you're going to want it to be face down. That is, looking from a top view, reversed from what you want. Then when you put the outline in place, you will see the other color, right? You'll see the original word that you put in there with an outline around it. The outline will be attached. So you are done as far as creating a receptacle for the filament. This gives it a place for it to live, but there's a problem. Filament has a silicon body to it. So attaching it is more than a little difficult. So what you're going to need to do, or what I did, you can do it differently, is create a way of attaching it. So what I did is I created a back, again using that same word again, and I put pins in place where all I had to do was just shape the movement of the filament. And in other places where I wanted to hold it in place, I created a little block with a 3mm hole in it, very thin at the top. So you got to be careful when you're running the filament through that you don't break these, because you don't want to block too much of the light. And no matter what you print it in, these are going to be in white. Okay, so at least the top part. You're going to feed the filament through these little blocks that you add to that word, to the face of it this time, and go around the little pins that you put in place. That's going to allow you to spell out around the letters on this back piece. That back piece then goes into the first piece that we created. All right, so it's got a little bit of a buffer. When you do the outline, you can set how thick you want that to be. So you've got a little bit of a buffer there. You can make it big and thick so the light doesn't go out around the outsides, but the height of it is what you're worried about here. When you put the back in place, that puts the LED filament closest to the front of it. And then when you plug it in, it lights up. Now, why would you use LED filament? It's only 3 volts per filament. So if you put 2 in series, right, one connected to the next, it's 6 volts. So it's a very low voltage solution to create a small light up sign. And while you may have seen the video and they were tiny little signs, you don't have to stick with a tiny little sign. More voltage obviously is going to be needed if you're stringing 3 or 4 or 5 of these together. If you're at 5, it's 15 volts. But it will allow you to create any kind of sign that you want. Now, I even went so far as to not solder the filaments to each other to make it easier to replace. All right. So I still have to work out the connectors coming in from the batteries, but as far as the internals are concerned, I created another small block that takes the 2 feeds from the filament and they just slide in against each other and you're done. There's your connector for it. It's plastic, so you don't have to worry about anybody getting a shock of any kind from 6 volts. And you have a larger sign than 1 string of filament would give you. Now, it doesn't look quite like a neon sign, right? And it won't, because it is coming through 0.5, 0.3 millimeters of plastic. However, if you take what I did and reverse it, so now you take your word and you make the word face you, so it's the right way around, and then put the little bit of border around it. And instead of putting a back on this, you're going to leave it open-faced. So that means now you have to put anything that you want to hold that string in place with right on that face. Or you could make it attached to the outer walls of the letters, right? So you've got the walls there. You could put something in place that allows you to tuck those in behind that and light them up that way. That will give you more of a neon-like effect because the only thing that will light up is the LED filament. Now, you will be able to see the individual LEDs, so it's not going to look truly like a neon sign would, but it's going to give you a rough impression of a neon sign. And like I said, even if you do it the first way, where the light's coming through the thin plastic in the front, that still gives you a beautiful little light up sign that you can have. You're a gamer and you want to put your handle in the background. This is a cheap, easy way to do it. Just put your handle on the in Illustrator, print that out, put the little lights in behind it, and for a couple of volts, you have a lit up sign behind you while you're doing your telecast. Same for anybody who's doing a YouTube channel. If you wanted to make sure that people knew who you were all the time without having some thing on the screen, you could just have this in the background and light it up and you're good to go. It's also good if you wanted to make a presentation for somebody, make them like a little trophy, or let's say you have somebody who really likes unicorns. You could create a display where you have the unicorn, but you also have their name lit up on there, right? How cool would that look? So there's a lot of things you can do with this type of transferring a font that you've purchased or that you can find and putting that on there. Now, as I said, they need to be connected letters. There is a way around it. If you're using Illustrator, you can just draw lines between the letters. Now, bear in mind that those are going to light up unless you print them in a different color or you make it thicker around them so that the light doesn't come through. So, for example, let's say you use the word by, B-Y-E. The letters don't connect up. They're traditional Times Roman. So you have to connect your B, your Y, and your E together. When you print it, if you paint the connecting lines black, and if you've made that part a little bit thicker, which you'll have to do in Tinkercad, that will allow you to connect those up. But at the same time, block the light from coming out. So you'll just see a B, a Y, and an E. In addition, you could just do it in Tinkercad. You could take those 3 letters, put them in Tinkercad, create a little block, put the block in between the letters, then on the back side of the block, create a rod for a hole that would then allow you to put the filament either through the blocks, which is possible, or just along the outside of the block. Again, remember that this stuff isn't going to stick to anything. So you're going to have to put something in place that allows that filament to be held. Same thing when you're doing the letters. If you're hooking the filament onto the letters, you're going to have to remember that gravity is going to try to pull it down. And you don't want to have to rely on just getting it put together just right. So at the top of each letter, you might put one of those little blocks with a hole in it so that you can feed the filament through. But then, let's take, for example, an E. You're going to want to put that block at the top of the E. But you want the filament to go around the outside of that E, right? So it's got to go around the top and come back down and curve out. In order for it to do that, you're going to want to put one of those little blocks at the top to hold it so that it's there. But then the rest of it can be just pins, because the pins will allow you to rotate that filament around it and allow you to keep the shape of the E without too much effort, while that one little block at the top holds everything in place for you, keeps it from sliding down. And if you wanted to, of course, you could add more blocks on other things, like on the B. You might want to put it in the curves of the B itself so that it always stays in the B, but at the same time, it's not going to flop around. You could do the same thing with the pin for the B. So where the blocks are most required are going to be at the tops, and probably filing from one letter to the next. You might want to do something like that little block in between so that it just has a channel to go through, and then you can worry about the next thing. So you're coming off of a B and you're going to the Y. At the top of the Y on both sides, you're probably going to want to put one of these little blocks. And then just use pins. Again, you're going to have to work out how you want the flow of these to go as you go through them. And that's what I got for you guys this week on 3D printing and 3D printing signs. Again, there's a YouTube video. You can look it up for Neon Signs to see how he did it. I do it a little bit differently than he did, so you can use my method or you can use his. And I'll talk to you guys all next week.